a tough, and interesting week 4 trades here in round 7, and with 3 available now, all the way through until round 13. Then we get 4 from then on. A lot of people could be really busting through those trades, and it's a fun time, but something you need to look out for is how many you're using over these next couple of weeks. And 3 is probably a good one this week just to get things in order. If you're trying to get Hines, it could be a good way to play it. But even 2 is going to be fine. If you aren't going for Hines, you're not pulling apart your team to get him, then that 2 is going to be fine as well, which is what our people squad did. But my team here, I've decided to go for 3. I had 356 in the bank, and I found it very important to really push this week and the next couple to get my rank right down there, closer towards that top 500, and really push for overall honors would be my plan. So there was lots of options this week. Go for Hines. I decided not to. You can still see him sitting there on the right. My play in this one was to go for Moses. So there was a little bit of chat around him, Dylan Brown potentially. I did want one of those Eels halves as things get easier for them over this next stretch of sort of 7 games before their bye. In round 14, we get a good player for round 13, which is going to be lovely. And my next kind of thoughts were, Trent Loiero is getting closer to a sell, has a buy in round 9 and 13. So I would rather hold Katoa over Loiero, even though there's a bit of a price difference. That's my general thoughts at the moment. Trent, I think he's closer to being gone, but he is currently staying in my side. I did play around with trying to move him to potentially Hammer or something like that, but I'm not excited by Hammer's Rabbitohs game this week, especially being tonight as well. I can see him finally not scoring a try, but I still think he's a great option going in towards the bye period, guys. They only miss that one game, I believe, in round 16. Or was it 17? One of the two. We'll go through that in a sec, but only one game over the entirety of the bye period. So that's really important. They have their bye in round 11, and then you've got Warriors in 12, and those are 2 teams that are pretty important over that section of games. And if you don't have Jackson Ford yet as well, if you're looking towards the buys, he's going to play all but one as well. So very, very important. So Trent, as I said, is on the chopping block. Could potentially move him on, but I think probably next week. He still has a little bit of cash to make, and then we can make our decision on him. So Moses comes in. The trade out targets. Chester was pretty obvious to me. There was also Hopgood was the next guy on the list, and he has gone. So Hopgood basically straight to Moses. So I think that's an upgrade. Hopgood, I think we can potentially wait for him to lose a bit of cash and pick him up in the origin period if he happens to get big minutes through that time, and a mixture of Junior Barlow out there, potentially Madison, like not picking him up personally. I hope that he does play origin, but that would be mean to you guys and to the people squad who picked up Madison. So yeah, that's where we're at the moment. The 3 trades. My third one I'm really not sure about. I'm still 50-50 on this. I do have Crossland in my team currently, but I'm actually leaning towards Couchman at the moment. Big reason, Crossland did not get the dual position. So I would be getting 2 halves in this week, and that would leave me with 5 halves, which I just think is probably a little bit too much. So just thinking about it straight out like that, I think Couchman could be the play in the mids who has that dual position, and he's going to be good to cover multiple positions over the bye period as well. What we're looking at with Couchman is he is 53k cheaper. So that would leave me with 93k, who I'd be able to use, Trent Loiero to go to a decent, wing fullback, a decent center, maybe McInnes, something like that. I think, could be a good play next week as well. And that would shore up my mid position as well, because I am starting, Ford Murray Haas is solid. And if I bring in Couchman, that helps with the mids. I don't really want to play Murdoch Masila if I have to. Okay, thoughts on Crossland. Why would I bring him in? Okay, so you get hopefully sort of 55 to 70 minutes, I'd say, in that hooking position. Man's not one of those guys that is going to spend a lot of time at hooker. I think he's better as a running forward in the middles there, tackles hard, runs hard, and just sort of play 40 minutes. So maybe it's 15 taken off Crossland to help out a little bit, whether that's sort of 30 minutes into the game, whether that's right at the end of the game. I'm not exactly sure how that works out. That is the main issue with Crossland. It's just that he might not be playing that sort of 70 minutes, which we'd need him and want him to do to average anywhere between that 45 to 50 there. I think he can do. So Crossland has the biggest upside, and my main reason now for moving him on is that in this setup right now, I'll drop it down for you. I'm bringing in Teddy this week as well. So the setup at the moment has Loiero as the looper, which is cool. Talau is going to be the guy that we'll use to loop. And, if Loiero scores 38, 37 plus, I think, then I would just play him over Crossland anyway. So likely of this next bunch of weeks, I don't need to have Crossland as a starter in my side, like in my best 17. So him being that little bit more expensive just there as like a cash cow is probably the main worry. If you are looking to play Crossland, then I think he's a great trade in. If he's not going to be in your best 17 week in, week out, then you don't really need a half. I think you can fade him and go for Couchman. I spoke about Hazleton in the most previous video. Sonny Luke was another one I was looking at as well, but I think Couchman with the duel is going to be good, and hopefully Robson doesn't get injured. But if he does, I can straight swap him to, God forbid, Reed Marnie or Jeremy Marshall-King. Yeah, that could be the other two options there. So that's my general thoughts in the moment. Couchman probably comes in, gives me 93k to potentially use next week. The other issue in the side was trying to work out, do I bring in Walsh or do I bring in Tedesco? They were the two clear top guys in the end. I had mucked around with like bringing in To'o and Hamiso. They were potentials as well. But I just think Tedesco has the highest ceiling out of him and Walsh. Yes, he's going to play Origin, but if you bring in Teddy now, you're holding him through the entirety of the season because their bye schedule is pretty good. So they've already had one, and they have round 13 and round 19 out, and he would have been out in those games anyway. So only misses, hopefully, without injury and stuff like that, 2 games over that period, and potentially it's rested in one of them. I would actually look to potentially bring in Walshy anyway next week. So Walshy's an option. Jack Bird's an option for me as well, so I don't have to play Alamotti. Hopefully that was just a bit of a flash in the pan, bad game for Alamotti with them getting 50 put on them, and they have a nice bounce back week. We saw what happened with the Raiders, and even Crow could come out in the next game and they beat the Broncos, and he got a 30 odd. So I think Alamotti can bounce back, and we really are going to need him for the bye period with the Dogs there having a pretty solid section of buys there. I think they missed 2, but only one major buy around 13. They might be 13 and 17 or 13 and 18. I think 17 there. I think is there one. So correct me if I'm wrong. I'm just going off the top of the dome here. I was just looking at it all and working out my team, but that's kind of the theory with the centers. So yeah, I think Couchman just gives me an extra bit of breathing room there to make that decision. And I'm looping Couchman or I'm looping Katoa, really is the call there. And that's not too bad at all. Like, having those two guys to do that. That means Katoa, I'd probably, how would that work? Would I just loop Katoa in the 5 and then play our other boy, Liero? It's probably the thought there, I would say. And then loop, Liero out or 40 out or something like that. Ford had that try in the back end. So yeah, look, it's not the worst predicament to be in at all. Like, my wing fullbacks now look much better. Miller, Tedesco, Suali'i, Lemuelu, and Alamotti. As I said, I want to improve, that position with Birdie. If I do bring in Walshy next week, then Suali'i could go into that centre position and cover. With him as also one of those guys that I'd be looking to move on potentially before round 13 when he has his bye. Just because he hasn't been scoring super well, and we're not, at 500k. I think there's better options just at 100k extra that we could go to, but let's see how he goes and how the Roosters go over the next few weeks, because if Roosters get back to good form, then he's going to be hold over the entirety of the bye period because of him only missing 2 games in that period, and having dual position status is going to be very, very helpful. So Cleary is captain this week. I'm so happy with the team overall. Having Moses Ian sitting on the interchange bench is going to be really, really cool, and hopefully over this run of games he can average 60. I'd be very happy with a 60 average there. And him to sort of hold price or go up a tiny bit would be great there. As we're looking towards the bye period, guys, we have a lot of edges, and you can only play 2 of them in round 13 and 16 and 19. So something to think about there is that 13 is actually pretty tough with these guys because Preston has a bye. Cartwright will be playing, which is good, so he probably gets held all the way through then if he keeps his spot. Hosking has a bye as well as Katoa there and Liero. So something to think about with the edges. You might have to bring in a round 13 guy in the edge position, or use a Couchman or something like that to cover. If you have Jack Bird, he might have to cover that position as well, but you do have Alamotti out in that section. So clearly, there's obviously plenty to think about heading into getting closer to the bye period, but that's the general thoughts with the team at the moment. Let me know what you would have done. I strongly think I'm going to downgrade Crossland to Couchman to have that mid cover there, and leave me with 93 in the bank, 25 trades available, and push forward to next week. So that's the general thoughts. We'll move on to the People Squad now, and we're looking at 2 trades here. So Hopgood comes out, Madison comes in, and we also lose to Muddy Martin, who is injured, and Couchman comes in to facilitate that Madison trade. So hopefully with this one, Madison plays long term and doesn't miss any time over Origin. You're looking at our bench here with, a couple of edges with the Oro and Preston playing. We've got Ford as our mid cover, which is good. We now have Couchman for mid cover as well. But Boydie's our hooker cover and half. He's going to stay in the side. Who knows what would happen if Sexton actually didn't get injured? It sounds like it was a fractured wrist he ended up with. Must have been either during the game or right at the end or when he scored. I don't know how it worked out. But Boydie's back. We'll play him. And we have no one to use as a looper. So I think that 4 is completely fine. Our centres, we got Alamotti playing still. We have Warbrick playing. So hopefully for anyone who's holding on to Warbrick, there will be a bunch, but there will also be a lot of people selling him as well, that he can score a try against a pretty brittle Manly defence with a young, fresh winger coming in on that side. So yeah, with them conceding so many points, I think that's the solid one. But overall, team looks solid. I'm really happy with the mids and the hooking position. Obviously, that's where we're going to be trying to make all of our points this week, along with Cleary and Johnson in the halves. And, really, Walshy would be a big one from him would be great as well. So that's where we're at in the people squad. We're sitting 4,500 overall. 26 trades left, so one extra compared to my team there. And 15k in the bank. But, looking forward to the next bunch of weeks, we really need Nikorima and also Katoa to score really well. And hopefully Murdoch Masila to come out and get a 30-odd. The only other thing with Murdoch Masila is with him not playing that great, not really offering a lot of punch for them. Couchman was an edge. And that's why he's got the mid and the edge duel, but he has spent a fair bit of time in the middle recently. So he's someone that they could move over to that edge because he's such a workhorse. He has an offload in his game and potentially some attacking stats as well, as you saw last week. So that's something to keep a watch over as well as to why Couchman could potentially be a solid option. The other general thoughts on Couch, I was looking through all of the games that he's played and all of the games for the Dragons in general. Couchman's missed round 3 there. But the middle rotation is pretty strange. So you look at Mbai and Little, and they just split the minutes, the 80 for the hooking position. And then there's been games where Molo's played some decent minutes. There's been games where Musgrove's played some decent minutes, but he has then been kicked out of the side, and Couchman has been the one to get that couple extra minutes the last few weeks. Very, very interesting how that's played out. DeBellin, they haven't given big minutes to. They're using him as just a 40-minute guy, so that's interesting in itself. There was, Laurie did come off early last week, but then did come back in the game, and he's been named again. So not sure what's happening there. It sounds like Couchman has overtaken Musgrove, which is ideal. And that game last week, I think, has given him a fair bit of confidence going forward. So there's a few things there. Josh Kerr's the limited minutes guy on that bench. Couchman is definitely ahead of him. In the last few games, he's played the bigger minutes, definitely. And I think they know that they can get a good output from Couchy in bigger minutes on the par, given he's a good workhorse and he has scored well in all of his games coming through. Only thing that's you look at those first few games for him, the reason that he had lower points in the majority of them is one, they won really well and had ball in hand a lot and he didn't have to run as much. So there's games there where they are defending a fair bit, even though there's a lot of points getting put on them. He's been able to make 30 plus tackles and do a good job. So very limited on the negative side. I think if Couch can, if he can be a part of a close game where it's just that back and forth, which, the Dragons haven't really had, but Raiders this week could be a little bit of that back and forth. It could be open as well, considering all of the Dragons games have been pretty high scoring. I just think for Couch, if he can get that lower scoring game, he's going to dominate in one of those and get plenty of base. And then, thankfully last week you saw that he could have an offload or something in his game. So I do really like the Couchman trade in for the People Squad, and I'm potentially going to do it in mine as well. Good luck with your trades this week, and make sure you tune in to the live on YouTube tonight. I'll be going live there and having lots of fun answering your questions. Have fun, guys, and enjoy the game tonight.